Welcome back, students, to the day 2 of this series, Fundamentals of DBMS. As I told you in the earlier class, that this series definitely going to help the students who are currently pursuing B.Tech and who are currently in second year or first year and having the subject DBMS, Database Management System. We are thoroughly going to cover all the syllabus of B.Tech in this series. So let's start the today's session. Today we are going to start with the topic, that is the application of database. In the last class, as we told you that what is database is nothing but a place, a platform where you will store your data. So we also discussed some key concepts of database in the earlier class, and we also discussed what is the basically the advantage of using the database approach, why we should use database, actually database management system. So now in today's class, we will discuss the application of database where we can use databases. As you know that databases are used everywhere to store the data, to manage the data, to retrieve the data, and to update your large amount of data efficiently. So some of the key application areas of databases is mentioned here. The first is the education sector. In education sector, databases are basically used in schools, in colleges, and in universities to manage the student data, to manage the attendance record, to manage the codes and the other exam details as well, right? Then, secondly, the banking system. In banking system, what happens is bank uses the customer data, right? And with the help of this customer data, they manage their all the transaction details, they manage their all the loan and the credit details. So in this way, the banking system helps the database management system. So for example, when someone withdraw the money using the ATM, what happens actually? The database instantly updates your account balance, right? So this is the use of database management system in banking system. Now, third is the healthcare or hospital management. In healthcare, what happens is uh, usually the hospital basically maintain the record of patients. They also maintain the record of doctors. The appointment history, the medical history of the patient is also maintained using the database. For example, if a hospital stores patient ID, what is their diagnosis, what is their test reports, what are their prescriptions, all these are stored in a database, right? The fourth is the airline and railway reservation system. If you want to book your ticket, then they ask you about your name, your passenger details, your ticket booking, your source and destination, your seat availability. All these details are maintained, reserved in the database by the railway reservation system. Clear? Next is the e-commerce application. In e-commerce application, suppose you want to use Amazon. So Amazon having a huge database where you can purchase some items from the Amazon, where it will manage millions of products, users and orders in the real time. So all the product details, all the customer information, your orders, your payment history, all these are basically stored where these data is stored. These data is stored in the databases. Clear? Now, next is the telecommunication. In telecommunication, when your where is the mobile history is stored, what is your call duration, billing information, customer data, everywhere the application of database management system is can be seen. So in this way you can see that database management system is so important and it is working in every field, whether it is an education sector, whether it is a banking sector, whether it is a telecommunication sector. So that is the use of database management system, and that is why this is a very important subject to understand. Now, the next topic is DBMS architecture. Till now, we understood that what is database, what is the use of database management system, why we are studying this subject. Till now, we understand this thing. But now we are supposed to understand what is the architecture of this database management system, right? So DBMS, as I told you, what is the architecture? Architecture is nothing but the overall design and the structure of a system, right? So if I said you that what is the architecture of this DBMS system, so it basically explain you that what is the overall design, what is the overall structure of the system. It basically explain you the different components, how the different component inside the system are organized, how they are interact with each other, and what are the different methods and principles are used to build the system. That is nothing but the architecture, right? Different components, how many different components are there, how they are interacting with each other. So that is basically the overall design of the system, that is known as the architecture. Now in DBMS, the architecture is basically divided into three main types. The first is the one tier architecture, the second is the two tier architecture, and the third is the three tier architecture. Let's understand each one by one. What is one tier, what is two tier, what is three tier. Am I supposed to record? मुझे लगता नहीं है. Okay. So now in one tier architecture, what is one tier architecture? In one tier architecture, what is happening actually? Your database and your applications are located on the same system. Let's consider a simple example. Suppose I am a person and I am using my mobile phone, right? Or I am using my personal laptop. I am the teacher of a particular class and I want to store the data. And I created a table and I am storing the data of the students in my class. So I will create a table and I will store the student data one by one in a row wise manner. And I will store the data in my personal laptop only. Clear? So if I want to use the data, I can access that because this is my personal computer. So here you can see here that the database, that database is the where the data is stored. It is stored in my personal laptop. And the application is because I want to use the data, so I will use my personal laptop for that. Clear? Both are stored or both are located on the same device. So that is the basically the one tier architecture, or you also known as a single layer architecture or a one layer architecture, where all the users have direct access to the database. We can directly access the database. Clear? And its application. So as I told you, the simple example is we are using our personal computer, and with the help of some simple commands or with the help of simple queries, we can access the database. So that is the example of one tier architecture, where the database and the applications are stored in the same device. So where this type of architecture is helpful, this type of architecture is basically used in small applications where where the data set is not that much large. There is a small data set. So in small application, this type of architecture is used. Now, the second is two-tier architecture. What is two-tier architecture? As the name is suggesting, it is also known as a two-layer architecture. So what is this two-layer architecture is when the database and your applications are on different machines. They are not present on the same machine as it was in the one tier architecture. Here both are present on the different machine. For example, in a banking system, if you consider the example of a banking application, so if I want to use some application of the bank, so I will use my personal laptop or a personal mobile phone. Suppose I want to use some kind of a transaction from to somewhere. So I will use my personal laptop or a personal my mobile phone. But the actual database, where the actual database is stored, it is stored in the server. It is stored in the banking server. So here you can see that the application is basically happening on my personal device. But the complete bank database is stored on a separate server. So here these two things are separating. The database and its application are across the different machines. So this is nothing but the two-tier architecture, where the database server and the application server are installed on the different machines. So where this type of architecture this type of architecture is used in the small to medium organization. Clear? Now next is the Three-tier architecture, this one is very important because nowadays most of the application we use three-tier architecture. So what is this three-tier architecture? This is also known as three-layer architecture because there are three layers actually. And what are the names of these three layers? The first is the client layer, second is the application layer, and third is the database layer. Now, what is the client layer? Just understand this thing with the help of one example. Suppose I am having, I want to go somewhere, so I will go to the website, suppose makemytrip.com, and what will happen? I will click on the website on my Google and I will book the ticket over there. I will just click on the passenger details. What is my source? What is my destination? What is the date I want to travel? How many passengers we are? So all the details I will entered using my personal laptop. So that place, that is the user interface. So that place is nothing but your client layer. Client layer is basically where the data is handled, the user interface, and which includes your text boxes, your check boxes. So as you can read here, this is the example of client layer. If I consider makemydrill.com, then the client layer is where the user is interfacing with the system, right? So this is the first layer, that is a client layer. Now I entered all the details of the passenger where I want to go, right? Now what happens is next, now the server will check, it will submit your search request and it will redirect it to the application server. So that layer is nothing but the second layer, which is the application layer, where all the data is accessed, where and it will process your data, it will process your request, right, based upon where you want to go, on which date you want to travel, and what is your destination. All these details are searched, and based upon that you will get the result. Clear? So this is the application layer. Now third is the database layer. What is this database layer? Where the actual database is stored. That means where the all the details of the flights, where the all the details of the routes, where all the details of the traveling details, where all these databases is stored, that is stored in your database layer. So here you can see that there are three layers. The first is the client layer, where the user interface is present, that is your personal laptop, that is the first layer. Application layer, where it contains the application program, okay, where the application is actually happening. Now third is the database layer, where all the store databases is stored. So this is the three-tier architecture where the data is handling with the help of three layers. Where this kind of three-tier architecture is used, this type of architecture is used in large enterprise application. For example, if you want to handle the data of particular customer care service, for example, the Amazon. So Amazon is used this application of three-tier architecture in banking, in cloud systems, right? So this is the example of three-tier architecture. So in all, we just understood that what is the architecture? Architecture is nothing but the overall design, the structure of the system. It basically handles the different components, how they are connected, how they are interacting, what are the different methods, what are the different principles to use to build a system. We also understood that there are three types of DBMS architecture. One is the one tier, second is the two tier, and third is the three tier. In one tier, as I told you, your database and your application are located on the same system. In two tier, as I told you, your database and your application are on the different machine. And in three tier, as I told you, there are three different layers. The first is the client layer, second is the application layer, and third is the database layer. And all these three architectures are having different use. The one tier architecture that is used in small scale applications, in two tier architecture is used in medium size of application, and three tier three tier architecture is used in large enterprise of applications. Now next topic is data independence. What is data independence? we know that our data is stored in a database, right? Suppose I want to change some information into my database. So what will happen? Will it change the structure of your database? No, it will not change the structure of your database. It will not change the program of your database. It will only change the data inside the database. So that is the beauty of this data independence. Data independence means that changes made to the database structure doesn't require changes in the application programs and vice versa. Just consider the simple example. Suppose I am having a student database and initially the database stores different details like roll number, student name, student marks, student ID and everything. Suppose the administrator wants to add a new field, for example, the email ID. So was it required to change the structure of the database? No, it will just simply add the new field email ID. So that is nothing but the data independence where the changes made to the database doesn't change the application program. That is known as data independence. Now, next topic is database languages. What is database languages? We all know that our data is stored in database system, right? So suppose I want to add something into my database, or I want to delete something from my database, or I want to update some information from my database. So how I will do that? What are the different way to use that? Is there any kind of a language to access the data? So that is the way we use database languages to manage your data, to store your data. Users access and manipulate it using some kind of a commands. So these commands are basically known as database language. And in this command, we basically include the instructions for creating your database, for creating your tables, for performing some kind of operations. So the most commonly used database language is SQL, that is also known as structured query language. That we will discuss in a separate unit. What is this SQL? What are the different commands that we use in SQL? That is a separate unit. Just now, understand only one thing, that database languages what is the meaning of database languages? To manage your data, to store your data, to access your data, we use some kind of a commands, and these commands are known as database languages. Clear? So there are three types of languages. Or you can say your languages can be divided into three categories. One is the DDL, second is the DML, third is the DCL. What is this DDL? DDS is the data definition language. The second is the DML, data manipulation language, and third is the DCL, that is the data control language. Now, what is this data definition language? Data definition language means, suppose I want to create my database, right? Or I want to modify something into my database. So for doing this, the commands I will use are known as DDL commands. Clear? The commands which are used to create, to modify, or to delete the structure of the database are known as DDL commands. So there are some common DDL commands. The first is the create, CREATE, create. This is the first DDL command. Second is the alter. This is the second DDL commands that we will discuss in a separate unit. As I told you, all the language part commands we will discuss in the later classes. Third is the drop command, and fourth is the truncate command. Just for the understanding, as I told you, this DDL command is simply used to create or to modify or to delete the structure of the database. That is the understanding only. Second is the DML command, manipulation language commands. Means, suppose I want to add something into your table. I want to insert some data into a table, or I want to update some data into the table. So that is, I want to manipulate something inside the table, right? So for this purpose, I will use some commands, and these commands are known as DML commands. So there are some examples of DML commands. The first is the insert command. Second is the update command. Third is the delete command. And fourth is the select command. So these are known as DML commands. DML commands are basically used to insert, to update, to delete, and retrieve the data in a table. Third is the data control language commands. What is this DCL commands? DCL commands are basically used or to control the access and the permission in the database. Suppose I want to take the permission to use your database. So how I will do that? There are some commands to take the permission. So that command is known as grant, grant. This grant is used, basically this command is used to take the permission in the database. This revoke command is used to take out the permission from the database. So there are two commands that are used to that are basically known as the DCL commands, which are used to control the access and the permission in the database. So this is all for today lecture. In today lecture, we as we discussed today, first of all, the different application of database management system. Then we discussed the architecture of DBMS. There are three types of architecture: one tier, two tier, and three tier. Then we discussed what is data independence. Then we also discussed what are the different database languages. So thank you so much, students. I hope you understood the language. I hope you understood the subject. And if you have any query, then you can ask me. Thank you so much. Let's see you in the next lecture.